Hey guys, Kodiak here, and today I'm going to be going over the training grounds that were recently added in Soulmask 1.0. It is unlocked under Advanced Building, under the Furniture, and all things considered, relatively cheap for this point in the game. Once placed, you can actually go ahead and begin training guys once they are level 50. The mentor does require level 50 in order to become a mentor for either of the three trainings. The tooltips in this system are actually pretty robust and good. That kind of explains the basics over here on the left for learning talents, upgrading talents, and improving combat skills. In addition, what are the effects of using training supplies or things of that nature. So pretty good system. When you select a guy, you can kind of see because they are level 50, they will have 5 traits unlocked because you get a trait every 10 levels. So when you go to learn a talent, that talent will be one of these random 5 talents on the character. And that's where that whole amnesia potion thing comes into play. If you don't get the talent you want, for example, like let's say you don't want damage resistance attack, but you train it, you have to forget it and get rid of that. How does all that work? So the best way to do this is I actually recorded some screenshots of a character I called Training Dummy. And basically they trained with Grizz, that character we were just referencing. And the first talent they learned was Defensive Attack. And you see that it actually replaces the level 20 skill. So this was normally level 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. But you'll see this character is actually only level 18. So I actually have 2 skills now at level 18. And let's say I didn't want defensive attack. Let's say I wanted chain dodge or something of that nature. You can go ahead and use an amnesia potion at that point. Now, this text is very confusing. It says reduces 1 chance for tribesmen to learn a talent. I have no idea what that means. The net effect of this is when you use this potion, it gets rid of what you train. So you can see defensive attack is gone, but you'll notice I now have no talent to learn at level 20. So if this character was to gain 2 more levels, it wouldn't gain any additional talents. You would have to hit 30 to then unlock Remote Strike. If you were to unlock Remote Strike in that way, you couldn't use an Amnesia Potion to remove it at that point because it's now been unlocked. That's also very important for the first talent as well, that when you go look for a guy, that first talent is one of the talents that you actually want on the character. When we continue training, you can see, again, I randomly learned Malice, but it didn't go into the 20 slot. It now replaced the 30 skill. So what you're doing here is as you're training, you're getting rid of these skills so that, so like we talked about Remote Strike, it's now gone. And you'll notice that, Prime Battle Spirit, all that stuff, when we come back to here, we go to the next one. Chain Dodge overwrote that one. You'll also notice here that as I continually add more and more skills from the original Grizz character, it's just basically copying that character. So how this kind of ends up working is you want to take an almost blank character and then make a template that you can just kind of overwrite onto another relatively blank template that's lower level. And the reason for that is like, let's say you go and get like a level 40-ish character. Well, again, level 40 is going to have 4 talents unlocked. So that means you need to have 4 talents in here that are really good. And then you're going to have the last 2 skills are the only ones that you can modify. The reason you would do that is, for example, the passives, if you have Tribe Might of the Wild Wolf, that's okay, but that's a really low level one. There's no innate resistances that come with it. So if you want like plus heat resistance or plus cold resistance is very common from the original game, you won't have any of those because the guy you're getting right off the bat is much higher. So it's kind of like you're trading the additional resistances here for the for maybe not as good talent pool as the original. So that's something to consider. Another one to consider is the trait and aversion. So for example, this is kind of like one of the base bodies that I have to work with. So my character was originally level 13 when I tried, or when I got it. I got the Might of the Wild Wolf. I got the Weapon Master title. and then I made sure resilient healing was, I got one of the abilities that I actually wanted in there. And then I don't have any aversions and I don't have any mood bonuses. I can live with that. That's not going to be a problem. You'll notice that not all the skills are really great per se. Like they're relatively low. There's no 120 skills, but we're going to get to that. From here, we can keep adding additional abilities until you get to 6, but you'll see I don't have any in these slots. But again, if we go back to the Amnesia Potion, does not affect the maximum number of talents the tribesman can ultimately possess. All right, so what does that look like when we actually get to in-game here? So if we go look at that character now, currently training their skills, we'll see that they have all 6 of their skills. They have the Weapon Master, and you'll notice actually the bow skill is a little bit higher. And the reason for that is because the third option is you can actually transfer the various skills to other characters. So if I have another character that has like 120 bow, then I can go ahead and I can transfer that 120 bow over to this character as well. And that's up there on the training grounds. If we go up there and we look at that for the skills, we'll notice that you can improve the combat skills and do it all that way. And if we go to the training log, you can see that here where I've trained 95 through 107. I keep going all the way up to like 122 or something like that. That's on the character. So that's how you can really make like a really good base body. Once I'm kind of fully done with that, I'll probably turn that body into like my, I'll transfer the stats over to my particular body. I also have other bodies that I'm working on. For example, I have like a bodyguard body that, starts with body blood conversion and blood absorption, because those skills will work better for that type of body rather than things like rapid fire or chain dodge, because the NPCs don't really use that, whereas though the blood absorption and the other thing will be better. So you can make a couple of bodies like that and then go out and look for like base characters that you can then turn into like really good templates, because then you just chain train them over and over again until they're completed. Upgrading talents is really good as well. If you get a character that, oh no, they only rolled level 1 quick bandaging, not a problem. Just tame a guy that's level 3 quick bandaging, level it up to 50. Usually I just set them on the dies. I actually have that right now going on over there with the die pits. I have a guy that's just sitting over there that's, leveling up to 50. So then that way I can just transfer the skill. On that topic, this also works for crafting. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and take the crafting on this, and let's say I get a character that has 120 as 120 weapon crafting, I could go ahead and train the weapon focus that's on that character, which is the plus quality for shifting sands, 10% additional quality on crafting. I can move that over to the weapon crafting character, and then now I've made that plus quality on a 120 weapon crafter. Another thing you can do is, for example, and this is what I'm doing right now, is I have Weaponsmith Wilson here. He only has rank 1 as Skillful Hand. But the character that I'm, working up over there on the die vat right now, he has rank 3 of the weapon, or the weapon skill for Wild Wolf. So when he hits level 50, I can upskill Weaponsmith Wilson here and actually turn him into a rank 3. So it kind of gives you the ability to kind of like modify. It takes the pressure off, like, oh man, I need to find this perfect guy with 120 weapon crafting with plus 10% quality and this additional bonus, and all. Like, you don't have to worry about that, right? You can kind of find pieces and then kind of put things together over time to kind of do all that. Now, probably the more important topic of this is also how quick all this happens. It actually is very time intensive. So if we go back to that training log, they started the day at 7 a.m. here at 95, and 7-8 hours later here, we're looking at 107. So I really only gained around 10-ish points, a little like 12 points in around 8-ish hours. So that's definitely very, very slow in terms of progress and how long that's going to take, and all that comes back to like the equipment that you actually use. Um, so when you use training supplies, it says using weapons and armor improves training efficiency. Same thing here. Medicine, using medicine improves training efficiency. The problem with this all becomes some sort of material cost, because it all becomes an equation of like time versus value. So the setting that I like is I generally will switch this to bows pretty much always, unless you're actually doing something that requires it. So like the guys on the other pad right now are working up shields, so like they have to have a shield to gain shield skill. So, but if you're just doing like learn talents or upgrade talents, if you can use a bow, I use a bow. The bows are the cheapest by far. I tend to do iron weapons and I tend to do bronze armor. I'll use the basic durability because those are really cheap. And then I do plant essence. In doing all that, that combination there will, if I learn a new skill, will be 1 hour and 40-ish minutes or like 45 minutes to learn a new talent. So like if I had one character here, that went ahead and we wanted to train, this guy here to learn one of these abilities, right? It would take 1 hour and 45 minutes to start and train this person with one of these talents that I have here. Now, if I were to go ahead and add in iron to your gear, so like let's say I would add it in the iron armor with the iron weapon. Normally I have the iron weapons, but let's say I add it in the iron armor, it only shrinks it down to 1 hour and 35 minutes. So it's like we're saving 10 minutes for now I'm wrecking iron gear versus I'm wrecking bronze gear. So, and not doing any gear whatsoever is like abysmal. Like if you do absolutely nothing, return no supplies, it's like 6 to 7 hours to learn one talent. So it's just going to take forever. So that's not great. Even taking off just the basic plant essence, this can add a couple hours onto the timer, up to like 3 hours and 40 minutes or so. So even doing that is really big. The big thing you really need to consider with that is you really do kind of have to get into like a crafting setup where that can actually maintain what it is you're doing. And the reason for that is very difficult, or that can be very difficult, is the actual secondary materials on these. So for example, sharp fangs aren't a problem for bronze because you get them now from piranhas. So you're just going to be swimming in sharp fangs. But as you get into other pieces of armor, things like shells, or horns or claws or things of that nature, you might have a decent stockpile now, but eventually you may hit the point where you actually completely run out of something like the shells, and then you have to go farm shells or otherwise. And that gets even worse with iron. You can actually see here, for example, I was using iron to kind of quickly train my guy, just taking those extra 10 minutes. But I completely ran out of premium sharp horns. So I couldn't make boots anymore. And even from the repair bench, I used to actually at one point had like 5 unrepaired iron pairs of boots in here because I just don't have any horns. Some of this can be mitigated with animal breeding. I believe most of the premium breeding pens here, like the bison and the longhorns, those will give you the sharp horns. You certainly can get the tortoises as well for the shells. Claws come off of, I believe, the eagle aviary, or I'm not sure the flamingo coop. I haven't really tracked what a flamingo gives, but it's one of those things where you can mitigate that a little bit with some of these. But honestly, I found the iron just to generally not be worth it, and I've really just kind of switched over to bronze just in general, just so that way I don't have to really think about it. Eventually, these premium materials are just going to run out, and it'll be very annoying. So for now, I'm not going to worry about that. But you have to think about, like, if you have a good source of them, then it won't be a problem. You also have to set up the uncrafting table and the table. So, for example, I have auto uncraft bronze armor under 3,000, iron craft or auto uncraft iron weapons under 4,000, things of that nature. So that way, they're not training for like 2 seconds and then like swapping out to another piece of armor, because when you repair it, it's going to cost the same amount of materials to repair it regardless, even if it has really low durability. So I'm burning a little bit, but then like once it gets low enough that I don't want to keep burning it, like, under 4,000 is, pretty decent. That'll give it like a good 8-10 repairs, which is pretty decent for an item out of it. So I haven't really worked out the entire math on that, but there probably is some like super efficient amount where it's just like, okay, well now it's it's going to cost you more in horns to repair than it would just to maybe make a new one. Um, but then repairs wise, I just repair everything. It's like I don't really care what it is, just repair it, and then we'll if it falls below, then we break it down. A little wasteful, but I generally don't mind. So that's basically the combat training. You can basically make a perfect character. You can get it full statted out. You can make perfect thralls that follow you around with just like unkillable talents and just like an unkillable setup. You can make really perfect crafters. Unfortunately, you can't train the crafting skill at this time. It's all really good. Highly recommend, and definitely something that takes a lot of the RNG of finding it in the field and puts it into the pads, into the resource system here, which you can. I prefer that because it's much easier to set up resources to get those going. So that's it. Thanks.